Welcome back to the Right Media Group Chronicles, where we chat with leaders redefining the future of marketing. Today, I'm joined by Christine Kovner, the mind behind K Squared Strategies, a boutique consultancy that's helped tech and media giants like Spotify and Waze scale with clarity and confidence. So, today we'll talk about building long term client trust, surviving industry shifts, and why AI is forcing every marketer to rethink how they work. Christine, thanks for joining.
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Would you mind to dive into how this all began?
My goodness, that's going back quite a ways. We've been at it for about 14 years. But
Wow,
I would
great.
say it all began when I realized that I worked at two large companies at Google. I was early there and I ran business marketing with a very talented team for YouTube, which the company had bought the first week I joined Google. And then at AOL during that company's turnaround. And I realized that I wanted to take what we learned at these larger platform companies and bring them to smaller businesses, higher growth businesses who
Mm,
maybe couldn't afford a marketing team with communications and everything in house, and also to have an impact a lot more quick. I missed doing the work of marketing. I found myself leading a large team, which was very ego gratifying, I guess, but I really missed being a marketer. And so I was eager to get back to the work and instead
Mhm.
of managing the work. And so we started K Squared Strategies back in 2013. And so it's been a
Wow.
really cool journey. And as you said, marketing has changed a lot then, but I feel like every time we talk about marketing, we say it's changed more in the past 2 years than it did in the decade before. So it continues to accelerate how it's changing.
Yeah. Is there certain something that's changed it the last 2 years drastically?
Oh, yes, it's called AI.
In a good way or bad way?
I think the jury's out on some things, definitely good ways. And honestly, I see it at our clients in some things bad ways too, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you mind to dive into what sort of services do you provide for your clients today?
Oh, you're so kind. What a nice question where we get to talk about ourselves. Oh my goodness, I'm so bad at selling ourselves. We do go market strategy for high growth, mostly tech and media companies, but
Uh-huh.
really any industry. And where we pride ourselves is on truly understanding a client's business. We see marketing as a source of revenue creation. And so it doesn't sit in a silo. You don't do marketing for marketing's sake. Everything we do is in service of either growing user adoption or growing revenue for our clients. And so we focus on really clear messaging and what a cohesive narrative is. We focus on their brand identity. We focus on how it comes to play out in the marketplace, whether it's a website or your sales materials or your case studies or how you show up at industry events. So it really runs the gamut, which we love. There's always variety, but we have, core things and a way of doing things that gets people to the right answer, regardless of their industry. Yeah.
So, what inspired you most after leaving the corporate world and running your own consultancy? I think you touched point on saying you like to get back to doing marketing because you were leading teams rather than focusing on that.
Yeah. Well, I think what inspired me most was just seeing what an impact you can have on a business when you have the right story and the right tools in front of the right people. And so I remember one of our very first clients was TapAd, and we came in and they were in the cross media space, sort of showing what would happen if you could target someone across devices. And they'd have these insanely higher conversion rates if you hit somebody on their phone and their tablet and their connected TV device. And so we started to craft those stories for people to say, here's the impact. It's not just about frequency, but it's about engaging people in different environments. And when we could put that in an easy to understand one sheet, all of a sudden the sales team was getting meetings that they had trouble securing, days and weeks before. And so it was amazing to see just the acceleration of the sales cycle and people having wins and high-fiving about what could happen when you have good marketing. So that's a really tactical example. I'd say the more inspiring thing generally is just helping businesses grow. And we really see ourselves as an extension of their team. You talked about building long-term relationships. We're with most of our clients. We start probably with a 4 or 6 month engagement, and we've had the majority of our clients have been with us for, well over 5 years. So it's
Wow.
really nice
Incredible.
to have them grow.
No,
It
no,
is. It's
for
funny,
sure.
and even as marketing teams shift, someone will come in and say, well, Kristin, you guys have actually been here longer than some of the people on the team. So you know where the secrets are. And we're always happy to help people
Yeah,
navigate too.
I mean, it's great that you can keep that retention. This is a question that keeps coming up for other agency owners out there. How can I keep my retention? And one kind of topic on that is upselling.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of gems you can give away that's kept that retention for you and your clients?
It's a great question.
Mm.
I don't think about upselling. So I don't know if that's
Mm.
good or bad. That's probably something I should think about. What I think ends up being called upselling is you expand your services. And I think that
Yes, yeah.
happens organically and naturally.
Mm.
As you get into a business, you see what they need. And so we often get approached for someone saying they need a new website or they need a new logo. And really, when you uncover in a discovery call, they feel lost because they don't have a clear narrative structure. And really, what they need is new messaging, or they need better reasons to believe or proof points to kind of tell that story. So once you're in and you've given them that, then you say, okay, well, yeah, now it's time to update our website. Or have you thought about this new strategy in which we would do a targeted campaign at CES, or we're going to do this other cool thing to reach and engage thought leaders in your industry or something like this? So we tend to find that our expansion and upselling comes naturally over the course of an engagement as we help people learn and grow. But I will say it happens the other way. We often help people hire in a function that we've built up. So, for example, if we're doing social media for a client, they get to a certain size and footprint, then all of a sudden it makes sense for them to put that person maybe in house and we shift to helping with other things. So, we love to be nimble, we love to be flexible and support our clients. In terms of retention, I think the best thing you can do is deliver great work, and so we are very fortunate that we haven't had to pitch for business yet because we have strong referral and word of mouth, and because I worked at two large companies where people tend to move jobs, and we're lucky that they bring us along with them. Yeah, the best way to retain a client is to do great work for them in the current engagement.
Yeah, and obviously you already have that trust with the client because they, as you mentioned, come from referrals. So that's already an element of trust is there where you say you don't actually have to pitch to a business.
I've been lucky, although I think
Yeah.
maybe this is the year. Who knows? As we look to expand and grow, we were definitely open to meeting your listeners who are not current clients or current friends. This
Yeah.
current team.
Because yeah, referrals are great. Like I said, that you have that trust that you kind of already overcome, and then it makes like explaining what you do so much easier. What happens when you exhaust those connections and that network you've got?
Or even with the referral, sometimes people just say, oh, Kristen's a great marketer. You got to work with her team, but they don't really know what we do. And so I listen a lot more than I talk, and I ask a lot more
I
questions
like that.
than I sell. So people often say, do you have a capabilities deck? And yeah, we have one, but I'd much rather have a conversation with you about your business and understand where we can fit in. I think that's one of the trying to make it relevant for everybody. But for us,
Mm.
I think in some ways we're unique in that we have specialists in a bunch of different areas and we can put the right team together for each engagement. And we don't have a strong overhead where we have to sort of push you into one fixed type of model. And I think, especially with AI, that's going to become much more the norm where you have sort of senior people who specialize in something coming together to help, accelerate what's happening in house at a client.
What would you say is working really well right now for K squared?
A lot of things are going great, which sounds like a terribly smug thing to say, and I don't mean that. I just think our team is incredible. We have incredible talent. These people would all be CMOs in their own right, should they choose to go in house. And we've been really fortunate along the way. So I should say, everyone I work with was either a client or a friend of mine before. We've
Oh,
never sort of grown with just a job listing. So I've always seen people's work before we invite them to join us in earnest, or they've come very strongly referred. And that's worked really well. So I think honestly, we've had an amazing team these past 4 or 5 years, and it's made it so that I could step away and have a baby and leave things in good hands. And it makes it so we can actually have vacation and time off. And I think for a lot of folks, finding the right cultural balance is really hard, especially in an agency environment. And so the thing that's going best for K Squared is honestly the people that we have behind it.
I would like to explore that a little bit more because one of the main challenges also being talent acquisition. You have been very fortunate and you're out there with the network and the connections you've had because you brought on board, like you said, people that you've spoken to before, you know their work. So that made that trust easier for you. How would you say you would be exploring onboarding that talent if you didn't have that?
We did do that once and ultimately it didn't work out. And I think it's because we have a way of doing things that is sort of our IP, as it were, and the way we do positioning or sales decks that we know works. We bring that sort of expertise to bear. And it's tricky because we hire senior people. And so, senior people who have their own way of doing something, it can be tough, I think, to adapt. And so, we're very humble with it. but we do have data behind us. The same way we work with our clients and say the data says this is a good answer. We have a thesis, we're going to test a hypothesis, we're going to test it. We feel pretty confident in the way that we deliver work really works for our clients. And so when I think about onboarding new people, of course, there's the day-to-day stuff of like getting them on the right Slack channels and making sure they're set up. We use Asana, so setting them up there. But then there's the intangible stuff of just, we send updates. We give well in advance communications if things are running long, and we support each other that way. And so really, I think for us, we can be really messy, but what the client is going to see is going to be perfect, really what they're giving us for. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the final part they see is organized. So that's the main part.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say has been the frustrating part of
I'm
the
going to be
business?
super candid with you. The frustrating part was the frustrating part before I went on my own. Everyone thinks they can do marketing. And it's one of
Mhm.
these functions where everyone has an idea of what an ad campaign should be or what the thing should say. And the reality is, most people aren't marketers. And so it's really a funny dance sometimes when you can be working with a CEO. And again, no names given. If you're listening and you think this sounds like you, it might be you. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it might be you. But, we have tricky clients where, the CEO thinks they know that's a marketing function and usually they're not. And so that's always a fun dance, but something that we've gotten better with over time. I think in some ways we're actually able to say things to a CEO that the in-house marketing team can't as an outside source, and that's great. So we're always happy to play that role of helping a marketer beef up their argument for doing something or for testing something new or why we think this other experiment probably isn't the way to go. But yeah, that's probably my pet peeve of just sort of blaming marketing when things don't go well or that, other functions think they can do your job better than you can. I don't go around telling people like sort of how to code their product, right? So it's very funny when it happens the other way.
Yeah, no, that's a whole podcast episode right there, just discussing it because there's so many like occasions and how do you deal with that? Obviously, you've had years and years in your agency. I'm sure you've had your own kind of steps now that you go through, but just not kind of coming out straight to the owner and saying you're wrong. It's kind of leading them nicely to that decision themselves.
Or honestly, sometimes you just got to run the test. You put a small budget in. One thing that's amazing, and let the data show it, right? I think sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes, our process is always that we write content, then we design it, then we code it, right? This is the most cost effective way to do things. But sometimes when you see something written down, then you react to it a different way. So we just want to leave that flexibility. It reminds me of this amazing story early on in Google days that Tim Armstrong used to tell of, they had a big automotive advertiser, and the automotive advertiser was like, we really want to talk about the APR rate and how we're lower than the competition, et cetera. And so they ran the ads. And, with Google search, you can run thousands of ads and variations. And the click through rate, this is again, early days of search, was higher on this truck club ad. Like, join the truck club for other owners of this brand. It was like through the roof, and no one really cared about the APR. And Tim said he brought it to the client and said, I just got to tell you that this random ad that we put together about the truck club, like, people seem really interested in this. And they're like, no, it's about the APR. It's about the APR. And they let it run. And sure enough, the people clicking through are about the truck club, and it actually informed their strategy to go and build a community piece and to create this, forums and other things. That was great. So I do think that marketing, when done well, can lead you to interesting outcomes. And one of the things I love is that we're always learning and we don't ever come in telling you the answer. Like, I find it very amazing when I see other people who do marketing come in and like give a client a tagline or like a statement before they've done any of the work to know what it should be. So if you're a client, don't ask for that because it won't be a good answer. And if you are a marketing consultant, let's not be so arrogant that we would know the answer before doing the work.
It's like you say, data. You can only go off
Yeah.
from that because you might have tested, a different story or ad, and you want to apply something similar, but it's a completely different business and audience. So still need to get your data, and then you'll know.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Would you say your client pipeline right now? Do you feel in control of it, or is it still occasionally unpredictable month to month?
It's been unpredictable. Honestly, we had probably no changes through COVID, through 2021, when everyone was sort of doing things. I'd say in the past year, we've had more changes. Again, no fault of ours, no fault of the client. Market externalities, the tariffs affected certain clients, the tariffs affected clients who had clients who were affected by the tariffs. Like, things have changed. And I think that the tenure I read of a CMO We used to talk about it was 24 months, now it's 20 months, and now it's 18 months. So I think with personnel changes, with mergers and acquisitions, the number one reason, and we're proud of this, number one reason we end working with a client is usually they got acquired by someone else who has another team in house or something like this. And so we're always proud when that happens. We love an exit, but that's happening more, I would say. And so between that and just changes in the industry and uncertainty generally, I would say there's more uncertainty. I feel it in our clients, like whether our contracts are speaking to that or not. I do feel our clients in the market more generally feels a bit more uncertain than say last year or the year before.
And crazily enough, you're not the only person to mention that. Almost every single guest I've spoken to has said this, and it's mostly because of the tariffs. Like you say, business owners are affected. They're scared to risk more money into ad spend and their branding and strategies because they're now kind of thinking about what if this happens? I need to have a backup.
Yes, it's so true. And it's tough because in a downturn, all the research shows that a strong brand is actually what can help you push through and survive. But that doesn't cut it if you're a small business and you have a cost of goods sold that's going up and you actually can't pay your people, or you can't actually produce the material you have, or you can't sell out your product on Amazon because you don't have more shipment coming in. So I think at a certain point, we talk about like the barbell strategy, right? Like what are you doing on the premium end, or if you're big, and what are you doing on the lower end? But that middle really does get squashed. And so if you are a brand who is facing uncertainty, but you have the cash flow for say 6 to 12 months, it really does behoove you to invest in your brand, to really remind your own customers why you're so great, why you're the right partner for them so that they don't get cold feet as things are shifting. And that's especially true in the B2B space. So we see some of that, of just sort of making sure you're reaching out and reminding your own biggest customers what value you bring. So yeah, I'm not surprised people are talking about that. It's uncertain everywhere and probably will continue to be. So we need to have strategies for dealing with that uncertainty.
Um, how do businesses survive in this tough time? It's actually making sure you have a strong brand. So instead of actually taking that budget away from there, you should be investing more, if anything. Obviously, your agency and these slower uncertainty times, how would you say? What would you say is the impact for your
I think it's
agency?
just on our agency. Look, we're a super small team. We're 10 people. So I really see it more on our partner agencies where they can't sort of say goodbye to a client. They sort of have to take what they're given. They don't have the leverage or the I don't know, cash flow, for lack of a better term, to be able to say or push back on a client or to part ways if something isn't working out. Like one thing I tell anybody who's starting a consultancy is the best a client will ever behave is in the contracting process. So if you're seeing red flags before you've even started, like run, don't walk. And I put in parentheses caveat, if you can afford to, right? We all have bills to pay. So if that's your situation, run, don't walk, but that's a luxury to have. For us, I think I'm excited about the ways our team is becoming more efficient. So for example, I used to spend a lot of time writing proposals. My clients did not need me to be spending my time writing proposals. What's the statement of work going to be for this? AI can help with that. It can take, look at 5 past proposals that are pretty similar, make these tweaks and spit that out so I can get back to actually doing the work. So I guess I am consistent. I want to be doing the work of marketing, not the administrative work of marketing. So in areas like that, where can we be more efficient and more effective? We have been able, for example, to bring our capacity up because AI is a helpful writing partner to get started on certain things. Or when you're testing headlines and you need 40 examples, right? It's like a good junior marketer. It's nothing you would send. It's funny. I won't give a name, but one of our partner agencies sent me something and said, I can't figure out what's wrong with this. I've been reading it. It's a junior person. She doesn't get it. Can you look at this and just tell me what's wrong with this? It was a press release. And I said, oh, I can tell you exactly what's wrong with this press release in 2 minutes. You've been spending an hour? They use ChatGPT. That's why it doesn't say anything. It sort of sounds like a press release should sound, but it's clear that the prompt wasn't right. And, it was a junior person using it. So these tools in the hand of an expert make you much more efficient, but the tools in the hand of someone who's novice isn't great. And so my big fear, which I guess you haven't asked, but you said what's tough about things, is that we don't get another generation of junior marketers because clients are not hiring junior marketers. They're looking for AI to do stuff. And so whereas we as experts and senior people can be brought in to help accelerate or maybe even, God forbid, like replace headcount, which would be terrible. I don't like that. I do fear that there's sort of this between the uncertainty and the AI, a hesitancy to sort of hire a new generation of marketers. And where is that going to leave everybody in 10
Mhm.
years when people are retiring and things like that?
No, you're right. And like now you just brought that perspective on here. So if there's no junior marketers in the next generation, there's not going to be senior marketers. And where is that going to leave? Is that going to just get rid of that whole industry in like let's say 5, 10 years?
It's really wild to think about. Or
It's
do we
like
move to a world where there's one person like you and one person like me, and we're doing the work across with a bunch of AI agents underneath us?
yeah,
It certainly seems like a less fun world. It certainly seems like a less creative world. But
less
maybe,
connection, isn't it, as well? Because like
yeah,
you love working with people. I'm sure you love working with your
I
employees as
do.
well. You remove them, you replace them with AI. Like what happens then?
It's a pretty lonely world, but maybe that's a
Yeah.
lack of imagination, right? So I always remind myself that, people didn't want the car because there were people whose job it was to scoop up the horse poop. And so it's really, I
Yeah.
hope it's a lack
No,
of
yeah.
imagination. Yeah. Yeah.
Most of your current clients come from referrals. So do you ever feel that limits how fast you can grow? Or do you prefer to have it more controlled?
It's a great question. We have found success with referral because I will tell you the time to launch is much faster. Someone already knows generally what you do. We have one or two conversations and we can be up and running, which we love. But yeah, I'm sure it limits what we're doing because we're not out there talking to, we're really limited the same way as your network are limited to the people we know and who they know. So in the past couple years, for example, we're women certified owned business. And so that's been a great new source of people just to grow my own network and my own understanding of how women are leading across various industries and putting
Oh,
us
that
in
sounds
front of
interesting.
different audiences. Yeah. So things like that that feel organic to us, but we haven't done honestly some of the demand generation that we help our clients do. But I think we'd be well equipped to do it if we need to, but so far we haven't because we've really been curating the types of clients we want to work with and where we
Uh,
can bring value there.
what moving into AI now, what is your general take on integrating it into your business?
Into your life. I'd go broader than that. We
Oh.
would be silly if we are not bringing it into our life in every way so that we understand it. And in that way, it feels like how I used to talk about YouTube back in 2006. Go on the platform, check it out. It's not just cats playing piano and dogs on skateboard videos, right? I mean, this was the conversation we used to have. And so I have a wonderful friend who does not work in our industry, but is always the first to try things and share them to us on like a WhatsApp thread. And so she was telling me all the things. So we use Claude, I should say, Anthropic's AI. I think it's the best writer and it's really, it gets your brand voice and things like this. So she said, I use Claude and she was using it for literally everything, whether it was looking at a wine list where you don't know the wines and taking a picture to find out what's kind of like a Sauvignon Blanc, right? Or divvying up chores with her husband and saying, we need to get this dishwasher fixed. Here's a list of 10 people who service this dishwasher and their phone
Wow.
numbers. And I said, how did you do that so fast, right? So what I've been playing with and what we encourage our team to play with is ask it. Get the answer, see how good it is at various tasks, see how not good it is at certain tasks so we know what not to use it for. For example, we have yet to find, and if your listeners have a suggestion, I'm very open to it. We have yet to find a good AI platform for doing video that doesn't look really poor quality. And so we have a trusted video team we work with on everything that way. Canva's okay, but not really what I'm talking about. And so we know there are gaps. I mentioned the press release before. Unless you've got a great prompt, do not write your press release. It's just garbage in, garbage out. So we are testing it with everything so that we can see how the progress goes with these new models, where it's useful and at what phase it's useful. For example, it's great for ideation. Right now, we don't use it for anything that like goes out to a client, but it helps us brainstorm and come up with like ideas and things like this. Yeah.
You mentioned an AI that's good at video. Is it create Are you looking at something that creates the video or just create, let's say, clips for you or content?
It's a great question. I think there are pretty good services out there that can do the clipping for you. What we haven't seen yet is being able to take, for example, an ebook or a great white paper and turn that into video without it sort of just
Oh,
looking like an
uh-huh.
animated PowerPoint.
Uh,
And that's
yeah.
okay. We know video's really hard and expensive, but that's just an area that, if we weren't looking at it for everything, we wouldn't know which things it's good for. Yeah.
Actually, I did come across one. I can't remember the name now, but if it does
Well, let
come
me
back to
know.
me,
Put it in the
I'll let
comments
you
later.
Because it's specifically used for, like, e-commerce, so it's like, you get
Oh,
all the
great.
pictures of a product, and it creates all these little short clips, but not just any short clips, actually what's trending, what are people, like, most clicking on, and
Oh,
it
that's
creates it
great.
by the trends. So yeah, if it does come back to me, I'll definitely let you know.
But what you're hitting on is so interesting. We have a bunch of clients in this area over the past 4 to 5 years of really creative intelligence. And, you
Mm,
talk about data. What's
mhm.
the next frontier of data? It's
Yeah,
really around the creative, right? So
yeah,
it's not AI is everywhere for the targeting, for who we're, micro, very, very hyper targeting and localization. But ultimately, it's about the creative. And so getting that creative intelligence of, what type of shot is having someone's face in the picture or not, so they can imagine themselves
yeah,
wearing the outfit, performing better, all those kinds of things that are really
yeah.
interesting to start to have
Um,
understanding of.
so you did talk about using AI more for brainstorming rather than
Yeah.
everything else. What about, are you exploring any workflows, AI workflows, automation, let's say onboarding process or anything like that?
We actually have an amazing client. Shibumi is a SaaS platform that helps people with their business or businesses with their business transformation initiatives. And so they just launched Shibumi Agentic AI, where basically these agents are helping move things along and with approval workflows or summarizing for a business meeting or your general stakeholder reporting to have it all automated. And it's saving their clients tons and tons of time. We have not, except in the ways that sort of Canva already has it built in, or Adobe does, for example, resizing creative works really well. Not a great use of our designers' big brains to be working on themselves. And similarly, like for Asana. So, as it's built into our platforms, I think we're using it more than defining our own AI workflows to speed the process. We've got a pretty streamlined process already. We're a small team, and so things
Yeah,
move from.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you could automate one major process right now, let's not talk about what it's capable of, but if it could, what would it be?
Curious what other people say. Like, what's the most annoying thing? There is, right? So, Amy, the AI agent who does the scheduling, that was a big win. Like, going back and forth in a calendaring with a client is very frustrating. I'm very protective of my own calendar. So,
Who's
no,
that? Sorry, you said Emi? Is that something you use?
Amy AI was the one that was doing it. And I gave up control of my calendar for a month or two to try it. And then I stopped. I really like to control my own calendar. I'm very old school. Probably the invoicing process, which I think you can, right? Like QuickBooks has it ready for you, but I still like to send my invoices. I don't know. Maybe it's because I had grandparents in the Depression and they love to sort of look at their checkbook and know, but
Yeah.
I'm a
Oh,
small
yeah.
I still send out my invoices. We can even have this is a little secret, but info at K Squared Strategies and accounting at K Squared Strategies both go to me.
No, no, no. Fair enough. Each to their own.
So I like to have a hand on that, even though I have a
Mm.
wonderful woman who helps us prepare all those invoices. So that would be a good one to have automated. If I could just press a button and know that everything went out correctly and was right. What do other people say though? I'm so curious what you would wave a wand for solving.
Well, it kind of depends on where each business is, right? I mean, you speak to some bigger teams and huge corporations. They're like, yeah, there's so many processes I could automate, and then I would become so much more efficient. But then smaller teams, it's more about workflows in regarding to onboarding.
Sure.
And like little tasks, but they add up time, like 5 hours a week, and then let's
Sure.
be honest, that's what 20 hours a month.
Yeah. I mean, it's nearly a day if you think about your non-meeting work
Yeah,
time.
so
Yeah, that's
it's
amazing.
these time-consuming tasks for smaller business, but for bigger corporations, they're like, "Yeah, I want something that's great, and that's gonna automate this whole department pretty much."
Well, that's the risk though, right? We work with some huge companies who are public, and I won't name names, but they've almost over-engineered some of this stuff. And the process is so involved that you think, oh, it's got to be built with our custom spec. And the worst thing you can do is kind of replicate your own messy process onto and map it onto these new tools. Like when you do bring a new tool on, it's a great moment to step back and say, what should the actual workflow be? And can we reset that in some way? And we've seen some people not quite deliver on that, especially the larger companies.
So K squared, where do you see it in next year? I mean, you were talking about exploring potentially some new options.
Yeah, it's a great question. I see us continuing to deliver great work for clients. We are starting to do more partnerships with like-minded agencies. So we have a great agency amplifier, and they are doing amazing sales consulting work for their clients and bringing us in for marketing, and we're bringing them in for sales. That's been great. My partners at Relativity, who do PR with us, similarly there has been growing. So I think a bit more of that in the coming years, just to kind of build that cohesion across an entire client's business. I do see us continuing to build we've built this sort of boutique expertise in boutique fitness, and I say that as a broad category, but we've worked with Kidstrong and CrossFit and now with the Unrivaled Sports franchises, and so I think we'll do more of that because it tends to be that when you get into one vertical, everyone sort of says, "Well, who did the work for that?" And it moves around in a circle, so that'll be fun. And then really, I think we will be much more we'll have playbooks that are more defined around how to be found in AI engines, sort of the LLM discovery. So the way SEO was starting to come up in the age of Google and how do I optimize my website to be found on a search engine? Really, one of the hot topics we're talking about now with all our clients is how do we make sure that your content and your brand is being seen when someone goes into ChatGPT or Claude and asks who's the best provider of XYZ service. And so that's a real area of optimization that we're working on for our clients too.
Is that more sort of getting the educational content out there?
Well, yeah, just being found in new ways and the ways that these LLMs are reading the web and understanding the web and what's on your website are different from the way Google did it. And so understanding those areas of optimization and then delivering them is important for businesses who want to be found, especially in retail or travel or sort of search heavy industries. I mean, I find that in my own behavior. I'm looking things up on Claude that I used to look up on Google. And so we see that across the board. And so making sure that you're
Yeah,
found in
I
those
do
areas.
wonder how Google's gonna come back from that because same, like I use ChatGPT to do my research, what I usually did on Google, like ask a question or find out information because it just takes you straight away to a link if you did wanted to go there. So, and like my husband mentioned something interesting the other day. He talked about imagine like ChatGPT started running ads. Like, how would that change marketing?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody paid ads and then because you're searching a certain topic, whoever paid the most money would come out on top. How would that even work? It's a crazy world to imagine.
It's crazy to think about. I think it would be a real mistake if any LLM simply mapped on the old model of what a digital ad looked like into the new platform. The same way that Google really changed search marketing. Yahoo used to just put the ad up of whoever paid, right? And search made it relevant. You still had search ads on the top, and then you'd have, very clearly labeled the non-sponsored listings below that, but they were, not just who bid, but also their relevance. So I'm sure the people who are smarter than I am will be thinking through what the right way to monetize that is. That said, the subscription revenue for these businesses is off the charts. And so probably advertising isn't the main or even the best motive of revenue generation for them. And so I hope that we're a long way off from that. We've seen many platforms sort of drop the ball when they start to monetize and they lose the trust, to your initial point, with users when they start to bring in advertising. So I hope if they do it carefully. Love to help them think through that challenge, but I hope that we can come up with something that's a lot better than what we had today for
Yeah.
display ads, for example, on these new
Yeah, no,
platforms.
I agree with you there. They have to tread carefully around that topic. But specifically, I was watching Sam Altman, and apparently he's billions and billions of dollars in debt, and he's not making a lot of revenue with OpenAI, which you think so. With all the subscription models, he'd be making something, but it's barely the amount that they actually are in debit for. So I
So
was just
expensive
thinking
to
if,
run.
yeah,
It's so
if
expensive to
yeah,
run.
if they are thinking to make more money, I was thinking, is that the next way they'll be going forward?
And it could be. I mean, there's so many business models that will come up. And that's where I say, like, is the lack of imagination. We're just starting to see consultancies pop up to help brands do what I'm talking about of optimizing, their
Mm.
content for these new platforms. I imagine there'll be a whole industry around this that we can't even think of what those job functions will look like. And I'm excited about that. So that's where I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of opportunity.
Try to stay optimistic, like rather than being, scared off and put off by all these.
Yeah, of
So
course.
so obviously the growth you mentioned that you're hoping for in this next year for K squared. If you had a magic wand to fix one thing in the business that's holding you back or slowing you down from that growth, What would it be?
right? I mean, it's limited to me for the
Mhm.
most part, which is one of the reasons people love on my team to work with me. They don't have to go out and get the business, I bring it in. But I think if I had more time to sort of do those kinds of meetings and be out there, sort of talking to people and finding out what they need, that would be great. And so I'm sure AI could scale that for me. I'm sure having a salesperson would do that. It just hasn't been our ethos. And so maybe it will be in our future.
Christine, thank you very much for this podcast and sharing your expertise and your knowledge.
Oh my goodness, you are the best interviewer. It's such a pleasure
Oh,
to
thank
chat
you.
with you. What great question. Really
It
made me
hasn't
think.
felt like an interview, has it?
No, this is delightful. Thank you again for having me. I'm very honored.
It's been a pleasure. And for anyone listening, that wraps up today's episode. If you have any suggestions, put them down in the comments for what topics you'd be interested in listening in the future.